Farmer Frank couldn't believe his eyes when he found something under his field. Without thinking much of it, he took the object inside, pondering about what it could be. When he finally realized what the object could be, he immediately called the police, sending his wife away as far as possible from this object. When the police arrive and inspect the object, they have some unexpected news for Frank. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. Frank was plowing his field when he suddenly spotted something in his back view mirror. He immediately stopped his tractor and got off to see what it was. As he got closer, he realized his instincts were right. There was a big hole in his field where he had just plowed. Frank stared at the hole for a bit, but as he looked at it longer and longer, he realized it wasn't just an ordinary hole. He slowly crouched down, his heart beating in his chest. Was he seeing this correctly? Surely he couldn't. He reached his arm into the hole and picked up something that would forever change his life. Out of the hole, Frank pulled some sort of rock. It wasn't of the same material as his field. It actually wasn't of any material he had ever seen before. Frank inspected the strange rock intently and noticed how it glistened in the sun. What on earth was this thing? He put the rock in his jacket and quickly drove his tractor home, never finishing plowing the rest of his field. "Jolene, where are you? You have to see this!" he yelled as soon as he got home. Jolene, his wife, came running out of the living room. "Frank, what is it?" she exclaimed, ridden with worry. Frank showed her the object in his hands, and he could see her expression change. "Yeah, Jesus, Frank, you scared me because of that? What's the matter with you?" "This isn't just anything, Jolene," Frank said, a little annoyed. He quickly put the object back in his pocket. Jolene playfully rolled her eyes as she kissed Frank on the cheek. "I'll be in the kitchen if you need me," she said as she walked away. Frank sighed. He just knew this thing was special. He could feel it, but why? Knowing he could never let this go, Frank went to his study. He placed the object on his desk and took a picture of it. He just had to know what this thing was. He quickly went to his own Facebook page and posted the picture on his feed. Maybe his fellow farmers had seen this sort of thing before. Sitting still was never Frank's strong suit. So as he waited for a reaction on his Facebook picture, he went back to the place where he found the object. Prepared with a shovel and gloves, he got down on his knees and began to dig into the hole. As he dug deeper and deeper, he couldn't believe how many more he found. Frank found a total of 5 strange objects in the hole, and he only stopped because it got dark outside. He could hear his wife calling for him in the distance, so he quickly packed up his things and headed home. When he got home, he could see his wife looking him up and down. "You're not sitting down at the dining table like that." Frank had to agree with his wife. He looked like a mess. His overalls were covered in dirt, and even though he had worn gloves, there was dirt and grime under his fingernails. He ran upstairs to freshen up when he walked past his study. Suddenly, Frank stopped and backed up to look into the room. "Jolene, don't wait for me!" Frank turned on the light in his study and slowly walked toward his desk. His eyes stood wide from shock, and he could feel his heart racing in his chest. The strange object he had found earlier today suddenly had paper clips stuck to it, and Frank knew for a fact that these paper clips were at the other end of the desk when he left. He almost dropped the object as his wife angrily yelled for him to come down. So he quickly cleaned himself up and went downstairs. "What is going on with you?" Jolene asked her husband as he sat down at the dining table. Frank looked at her, unsure of what to say. "It's the object. I just know there's more to it." Suddenly, everything clicked. Frank jumped up, almost knocking over his plate full of food. "Frank!" his wife exclaimed. But Frank didn't respond. He ran to the hallway and grabbed his phone out of his pocket. Without a second thought, Frank dialed 911, asking for the police to come to his house immediately. His wife, overhearing his conversation on the phone, gasped in shock. "Frank, explain yourself." Jolene stood next to her husband in the hallway, her face pale from shock. Tears welled up in her eyes when Frank grabbed her hands and looked her in the eyes. "You have to get out of the house, okay? Please go to your mother. I'll be there as soon as I can," Frank said with a sense of urgency. Jolene nodded as a tear rolled down her cheek. Frank lightly squeezed her hands and then he let go. He watched his wife hurry up the stairs to get her bags ready and couldn't help but feel guilty. Why on earth did he bring that object into their home? A little later, he waved his wife goodbye. As she disappeared behind the horizon, he saw the red and blue lights of the police coming his way. Frank waited on his porch for the police to arrive. As he watched the lights getting closer and closer, he realized it wasn't just one police car headed his way, but many more. His stomach dropped at the sight, as this meant real business. If the object really was what he thought that it was, it could end very badly for him and his wife. As the convoy of police cars settled into a dusty halt, Frank stepped forward, clutching the mysterious objects tightly. He extended his hand, offering them to the nearest officer. The officer glanced at the glistening rocks with indifferent eyes. "Just some unusual stones, Mr. Frank," he said dismissively. Frank's heart sank. He had expected concern, intrigue, maybe even fear, but met only indifference. Frank's voice wavered with frustration. He insisted these weren't ordinary rocks, unlike anything he had seen on his land. The officers exchanged skeptical looks, more eager to wrap things up than to investigate. Feeling isolated among the uniforms, Frank's discovery, which he believed to be monumental, seemed trivial to them. His worries and fears evaporated in the void of their disinterest, leaving him surrounded yet utterly alone. As the officers turned to leave, Frank's hands trembled, still clutching the enigmatic objects. Doubt crept in. Had he overreacted? Yet as the last car vanished over the horizon, a spark of resolve ignited within Frank. He couldn't shake the feeling that these objects held more than met the eye. With dawn's first light, Frank's quiet morning was shattered by the roar of engines. A fleet of police cars arrived, this time urgent and purposeful. Officers with stern faces approached. An officer stepped forward, badge gleaming, and ordered Frank to leave his property immediately for safety reasons. Confusion clouded Frank's mind. Frank, his thoughts racing, complied. At the edge of his property, Frank watched as his farm transformed into a sealed zone. Yellow tape stretched across the fields. Officers patrolled the perimeter. Among the chaos, Frank spotted unfamiliar faces, experts presumably, moving with purpose, speaking in technical jargon and hushed tones. Despite the crowd, Frank felt isolated. The land he knew intimately had become foreign, overrun by strangers with unknown purposes. Watching from the sidelines, he felt invisible, his presence barely acknowledged. The disconnect between his deep bond with the land and the unfolding events only heightened his alienation. As the day waned, Frank's anxiety deepened. The absence of clear information, the hushed conversations, and the guarded looks of officials fueled his growing suspicions. The evasion of his questions made him feel deliberately kept out of the loop, intensifying his concern over what might be hidden. Approaching a geologist analyzing soil, Frank sought answers, but received only cautious, evasive remarks about routine tests. The cryptic nature of the responses deepened the mystery, hinting at something significant lurking beneath the surface of his once familiar land. His thoughts turned to family, especially Jolene. The unknown risks made him fear for their safety, overshadowing the loss of his farm and personal turmoil. Jolene's unexpected return brought a shared burden of confusion and fear. Together, they demanded answers from officials but were met with vague, guarded explanations that only increased their frustration and helplessness. A breakthrough came when experts identified the objects as a variant of thorium, a rare substance poorly understood even by specialists. This revelation shifted the investigation's tone, introducing new tension and caution. Safety measures intensified. The area was cordoned off more strictly. Personnel donned protective gear. Watching these actions, Frank felt both reassured and alarmed. The authorities took the discovery seriously, yet the precautions underscored its potential severity. The turning point came when an official, in a rare moment of candor, informed Frank that the thorium variant was mildly radioactive. This revelation struck Frank with a mix of fear and fascination. The idea that a hazardous material had lain beneath his land all along was startling. Upon learning this, officials acted swiftly. Frank and Jolene were taken to the hospital for thorough examination. The urgency of the situation weighed heavily on them as they traveled through the countryside, now fraught with uncertainty. At the hospital, the couple underwent numerous tests designed to detect radiation exposure. The cold clinical setting was a stark contrast to their rural life. They shared anxious glances, silently supporting each other through the ordeal. Waiting for results was agonizing. Hours stretched endlessly in a sterile room where hope and fear mingled. When a doctor finally reported preliminary findings indicating they were likely unharmed, relief washed over them. though caution remained as further tests were pending. Their hospital stay extended with more exhaustive evaluations. The monotony of medical scrutiny and uncertainty added to their stress. Yet Frank and Jolene found comfort in each other's presence. Their shared ordeal strengthened their bond, reminding them of the resilience found in companionship during hardship. At last, definitive results confirmed no radiation harm. Tears of relief flowed as the burden of fear lifted. The couple embraced, grateful for this reprieve and hopeful for a return to normalcy. Back home, authorities began systematically clearing the farm of all thorin. Watching the meticulous removal stirred mixed feelings. Comfort in safety, but sadness for the disruption to their cherished land. The process was a poignant reminder of life's fragility and the unpredictable forces beneath the earth. With the land cleansed, Frank and Jolene looked ahead to rebuilding. Though their farm was changed, it symbolized new beginnings. They envisioned restoration and embraced the challenge with hope and determination. Together, they found renewed appreciation for ordinary life, their health, their bond, and the simple joys of rural living. The ordeal deepened their gratitude for a safer, simpler future, cherished above all.